All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Let's take a look and see what we're doing with Bitcoin for the day. So, as I discussed earlier, we were going to have some problems around 77,421. Obviously, we were able to get past above that and close above it as well on a daily candle. So, still extremely bullish, guys. Your high was 79,576. You closed at 78,300, up another 7.27% on a Friday. That is insane. So, these are the type of candles we were getting, lucky to get during the week. Not yet alone on a Friday. So, definitely an amazing candle to end our week. It's going to be interesting to see what happens on Saturday and Sunday. But now, here's the interesting part is that now we are above this, basically this bearish 786. We closed above it on a daily. So you have to assume whether or not we come back and test it first, which is what I'm going to be entering at if we are going to get back down here. But I'm now going to be targeting 82,429. That is going to be my target up until we get a blow off top. At this point, I am under the impression that we are going to have a blow off top at some point before we get a massive retracement down. Massive meaning not losing this daily 200, but massive meaning at least probably into this order block right here. Okay, so I will be expecting probably if we were to get that move up here, retracing into the mid 70-ish range to the low 70s potentially. I don't think we're going to go back into the 60s again, but I'm just saying from my perspective, that is what I am kind of picturing in my mind. That's what I'm going to be targeting realistically. We don't have to do that. That is just something that I'm going to be, basically expecting for price to do if it wants to. But like I said, because we got above and closed above on a bigger time frame, this support area, you have to assume we're going to at least test this next area, right? So that's 82,429. Now, one thing I wanted to take a look at, guys, obviously we got above the daily 200 MA. Where's the 2-day at? Well, the 2-day is at 86,000, right? So we could definitely, basically start seeing price, wanting to consolidate within this range here, especially above these other MAs. So there's a potential now that because we close the daily above its, 200 MA, you got to assume that we're going to visit the 2-day 200 MA. And then the 3-day 200 MA, and then the 4-day, right? So just because it's kind of going to go up from there, basically. All of them are within the 85 to 86K range, but basically all of these, moving averages for the most part. The exception is the 5-day. We were kind of bouncing off of it. That's at 79,778, so that will be probably treated as resistance right here. But your 2-day, your 3-day, and your 4-day are all either 80, except for the 3-day, I guess, but the 2-day and the 4-day are around 85, 86K. The 3-day being the exception, you're around 89K, actually almost 90,000. So that being said, for right now, you're going to have to assume because we're above the daily 200 MA, we've consolidated, we have about 3 candles above it. You're going to have to assume that we're going to come and visit 86,000-ish area or nearby it, maybe 82 to 84,000, like what we were talking about. Overall, though, I would have to say that I am first of all targeting this double top. This is going to be our target for right now before we get some sort of a pullback, probably. So maybe another $4,000 we could possibly hit prior to getting a massive pullback or more of a pullback. Now, looking at our daily candle, what we're doing right now is we are trading down, so definitely is a sign that we could continue our bullish move, at least for Saturday. But we are trading down. I am expecting for 77,421 to be tested. If not, maybe a little bit higher than that. We'll see what type of bullish 786 levels that we can come up with, at least locally. The 12-hour looking great. 10-hour looking amazing. Everything staying above this support line, right? Obviously, so... your 4-hour, your 3-hour, your 2-hour, and your 1-hour all look like they, especially your 1-hour looks like it was in some sort of a flag here. Something like this. Somewhat of a bullish consolidation sideways flag, and it just kind of started pumping out. Right now, you're kind of retesting the bottom of that flag. Maybe touching that 21 would be an option. But that's kind of what I'm seeing for right now, right? So definitely good sign to get a little bit of a dump to start your day. Like I said, for Saturday, I am expecting for this to continue moving up. I don't think that we will roll over here. There is a possibility that we may, but I am expecting for us to bounce sooner rather than later here. All right, let's take a look at the 15 minute. 15 minute, you're kind of starting to lose that 21 now. Again, getting the drop at least for the start of the day, so definitely could end up being a bullish day. It could be a rollover. This could be like some sort of complex head and shoulders here, but I am expecting, because of time wise, that this is going to be a basically somewhat of a bullish 786 retracement, at least in the short term. If you take a look at this. And we'll line it up with liquidity as well, but you basically kind of have to cherry pick it, not even from this low, but maybe from this low as well. You can see that we are bouncing off of 786 if it wants to, right? This could, whenever you're trending up, there's always a potential that you're going to have just a slight retracement down, kind of like what we saw here. But it's going to all be dependent on what moving averages we can hold, what we're losing. If we take a look at the 5 minute and the 1 minute, obviously the 1 minute lost the 200. The 5 minute is going to, it looks like it might test it, which would be the support line like I just talked about. So that's probably going to happen sooner rather than later, guys, testing this support line. We'll have to wait and see kind of what happens there. But again, I am not bearish anytime soon. I am not thinking that we're going to just straight up free fall. For me, at least for now, because of how bullish we've been, I'm more so expecting a blow off top, right? I'm expecting for us to utilize, taking advantage of some of this liquidity and then basically continuing our move to the upside at least into the low 80 range, possibly even up to 82, 429 before we get that retracement down potentially, okay? That being said, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at liquidity, see what's happening there. So, taking a look at our 4 hour, let me go ahead and refresh this here. So you can basically see we kind of got a little bit of a drop starting the 5 o'clock. Great sign. It can definitely get down a little bit more if it wanted to, starting to satisfy some of these order blocks. It's going to be interesting to see this weekend how we consolidate. I definitely want to see us closing into the mid 70K-ish range if we can for this weekend, even if we get a few $1,000 retracement. But for right now, you have to assume that we're going to at least be targeting around 80,000-ish level. And if ideally, if possible, even all the way up to here, around 83, 149. But we could even get up to, testing maybe the bottom of this area, around 82,000 even. It's just going to have to be a wait and see type of moment. I would personally probably target somewhere in this green area first, whether it be the bottom of this at 80,100 or the top of this at 80,857. That's going to be my initial target, and then if we're able to get above there this weekend, we can start targeting into this yellow-green area up here. Okay? Sorry, yellow-red area, I should say. Taking a look at your 1 hour. So, your 1 hour, you definitely have some liquidity to the downside. Obviously, if I were to zoom in, let me zoom in a little bit more here. God, there's really nothing for right now, except for a bounce off of the 21. You kind of took it out. Let me see here. Yeah, there really is nothing unless I really try to zoom in here. Yeah, you can see that there's some if I zoom in down to about 76, 472. But there's nothing that's really concentrated unless it's to the upside. So again, there's still a lot of people trying to catch the bottom or basically catch the top, I should say, shorting from the top. So it really is kind of giving me an indication that we can still keep that move going up, surprisingly. People aren't giving up on the shorting idea. So I am, for right now, going to at least be targeting this top, if not the double top at 82,000. Not that we have to get all the way up there, but I do not see this slowing down anytime soon, crazily enough. I think that 79.6 area, 79.5 to 79.6 will be an area of possible or overhead resistance. It's not going to be straightforward to get through there. But if you're able to get above there, you can basically test 80,800-ish area is what it's telling me. So, there's not, the crazy thing is, guys, is there's not really any liquidity to bridge us down below right near price action. Yes, it can definitely happen, but you kind of have to start getting into 76 area again. Unless you get into 76, 700, I would say, into that area, you're more than likely going to bounce here because there is more liquidity to the upside closer and nearby. So Definitely, this price action's been very interesting. Um, Again, like I said, I am more so for right now expecting a blow off top rather than an actual, just kind of rollover just because of how we've been consolidating this whole time. I think that the blow off top would be more realistic, just kind of maybe in the middle of the night coming up into here, testing it, and then just slamming down. Something similar to this, but a lot more violent, right? What we had up here, testing 79,559 and then just kind of slamming down all the way to 76,490. Except I would be expecting it to be more violent to basically start coming into here, more down into here. All right, so that being said, guys, let's take a real quick look at your order book through open market. Taking a look at your order book here, you can see that we do have this single order down here on 77,250 that we could possibly get filled. That's going to drag us down right around here where there's not really any liquidity that is visible right around here. But there is one single order there. There are multiple orders being built up to the upside. You got a couple that are probably acting as resistance between 78,900 and 79,000. Both of them are at 27.79. It just changed 26.22 to 25.88 million Bitcoin. It is being very, it's changing quite a bit, right? So it's not staying static by any means. And then you have another one at 79.5, and you have another area at 80,000. So, there's a potential, right, that we can get that move on up if it wants to. Again, we can get that move down too as well. We do have orders all the way down to 74.5. So if it wanted to, it could definitely roll over. However, I'm more so, like I said, expecting it to get a bounce just because of the timing and, where we are with price action as well. The bigger time frames are very well overextended, but like I said, it can definitely get a blow off top realistically up into the 80K range before we get that retracement. All right, let's take a real quick look at our symbol map to see what levels that we can watch here, and then I'll let you guys on your merry way here for the night. Let's see here. All right, so to the upside, you have quite a few points of resistance here. You got your first one at 78,750. If you're able to get above that, you can basically reach to 79,560 and then to 80,000. Now, if you get through 80,080, it looks like, you can basically kind of roll over all the way up to 81,760, which is close to 82,000 level. And then you have another one at 82,040 and then to about 82,600. So definitely some areas that we could definitely roll into as far as the 80,000 range goes. And then to the downside, guys, let's take a look at some support zones. So some support zones to watch out for would be 77,310. That's going to be your first one, which is right around this order, I believe, right here at 77,250. You lose that, you're going to basically go to about 76,500, it looks like. Somewhere around there, 76,500 to 76,530. And then if you lose that, you can basically get into the 76,110 area, basically the low 76 range. So that's what basically our swing time frame is showing us. Let's see our scalping. I didn't even realize I was on the swing. So let's see if the scalping is anything different. I do put more weight based off of the swing time frames just because they are higher time frame. It's a higher time frame graph. Taking a look at your scalping time frame, 78,750 is going to be your first area of overhead resistance, followed by 79,560 and then to 80,040. And then you can basically, like I said, get that follow through all the way down to about 81,760 and then to about 82,000 to 82,600. And then to the downside, guys, let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit more. You'd be looking at 77,310 as your first area of support, followed by 76,500 and then around 76,140 to 75,960. So basically 76,000 even is going to be your very strong area of support if we do get down there. But for right now, it is alluding to the fact that as long as we can basically get above 78,750, we could get that follow through all the way up to about 79,560. So it can just kind of flow through liquidity if we can get above there. That being said, guys, that is what I have for you this evening. I hope you all had a wonderful trading day, maybe took advantage of the pump that we did have. I don't personally think that the pump is over, so you could basically still be in a trade right now if you are. Good luck to you. I am in one as well. I just entered along right at the end of this wick right here. I'm taking a chance at 77,720, somewhere around there. So that is basically my long from here, and I'm taking that shot. As usual, guys, if you wanted to utilize Trading Different and its tools, feel free to use my code Sean, tradingdifferent.com/code/Sean, to get 10% off and utilize this amazing tool set that I showcase every single update. All right, guys, that is what I have for you. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you all tomorrow. Take care.